Hey guys, tonight we're going back to ancient Greece, but not the wine-sipping, toegate-wearing version you've seen on postcards. No, tonight, we're going to watch a literal sun god get humbled so hard, he winds up ankle-deep in cow dung, arguing with mooing beasts in a dusty field. And the best part? It's all his own fault. You're Apollo. Yes, that Apollo, god of music, light, truth, healing, poetry, archery, and honestly anything else that needed a golden poster boy. You glide down to earth, radiant as ever, because someone dared insult your temple at Delphi. It's unclear exactly what set you off. Historians still argue whether it was a stolen offering, a sarcastic prayer, or someone leaving olive pits on your altar. But whatever it was, your response was, well, dramatic. The kind of divine overreaction that makes mortals nervous for generations. Lightning doesn't just strike once. You personally smite an entire clan of mortals. Poof, gone. No trial, no receipts. Just golden fury raining down from the sky like a sunburn that files complaints with Olympus. Naturally, Zeus is not amused. He's seen a lot from you. Remember that time you tried to overthrow him with Poseidon and got sent to build walls for the Trojans? Yeah, this is kind of like that, but smellier. So after a lot of thunderous eye-rolling, Zeus passes down your sentence. 1 year of mortal servitude. No godhood, no lyre concerts, no dramatic entrances in golden chariots. You'll be living as a regular, squishy, sweaty human. And not just any human. A shepherd. In Thessaly. For King Admetus. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and what time you're listening. I read everyone. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing barefoot in a dusty grove on the edge of Admetus's palace grounds. The scent of olives drifts faintly through the morning air. Birds chirp with unbearable optimism, and you're still not over the fact that this body sweats. You glare up at the sky, half hoping for divine intervention, but no, just blue. Endless mortal blue. Somewhere, Hermes is laughing, probably keeping a tally. Admetus himself is surprisingly kind. You expect a gruff, suspicious man in a bronze breastplate. Instead, you get someone gentle, sharp-eyed, and too busy to ask why his new cowherd looks like a marble statue. He gives you a cloak, points to a field, and says something about milk yield and, please don't let the oxen wander into the vineyards again. You trudge to the pasture where 22 cattle blink at you with the indifference of royalty. One chews a fig leaf, another relieves itself ceremoniously in front of your foot. Welcome to day one. By midday, you've learned 2 things. Cows do not respond to poetry, and mortal bodies itch. You miss your sun chariot with its flaming wheels and obedient steeds. At least they didn't try to eat your belt sash. There's a kid named Pheidon who helps you get acquainted with your new duties. He's probably 12, smells like pickled onions, and treats you like a rookie, which technically you are. He shows you how to call the cows with a throat-rumbling, "Hey you!" how to check for bloat, and how to chase away particularly aggressive geese. He also says something odd. You don't look like you belong here. You shine a little. You smile and say you're from Lycia. It's your go-to excuse. Everyone thinks the Lycians are a bit mysterious anyway. Night falls. You lie under a poplar tree, aching in new mortal ways. Your stomach growls. You're learning hunger now too. Congratulations. And that's when you hear a hum. Faint, high, sweet. It isn't a breeze or the chirping of cicadas. It's a melody. A cow is humming. You sit up. The animal, brown, sleepy-eyed, very large, is emitting a soft, warbly tone from its nose. You blink. It blinks back. Don't make this weird, you whisper. The cow starts harmonizing. That's when it hits you. Even without your full divine powers, some of your essence is still leaking through. The cows are tuning to you, like lyres. Great. This won't raise suspicions at all. You try not to panic. After all, a few singing cows aren't the end of the world. Just don't let them form a chorus or start choreographing. You'll be fine. Probably. You glance up at the stars. They're annoyingly bright tonight. The kind of sky that makes mortals fall in love or write tragic poems about dew. You just sigh and roll onto your side. The grass is pokey. The earth is uneven. And somewhere behind you, a bass-toned moo echoes into the darkness like a lullaby from the Twilight Zone. Zeus really wasn't kidding this time. You wake up to a snort, a very wet, very loud snort, right next to your ear. Your eyes snap open to find a cow's nostrils inches from your face, breath warm and fragrant with half-chewed clover. You flinch, bump your head against a tree root, and let out a groan that is, tragically, very human. Somewhere in Olympus, your twin sister Artemis is probably sipping nectar and laughing into her quiver. Today is the day you officially begin your sentence. Yesterday was just the welcome parade, with its musical cows and surprise onion boy guides. Today, the real work starts. You tie up your hair with a strip of linen, still unused to the sensation of sweat sticking curls to your neck. You're dressed in a plain woolen tunic, scratchy and aggressively beige. There are no laurels, no golden sandals, no trailing cloaks that shimmer in the wind, just a second-hand belt and sandals that squelch in morning dew. You walk down to the pens where Admetus greets you like you're a Alperson, not a temporarily demoted sun god. That's part of what throws you. This mortal king is unfailingly polite, even humble. He offers you bread. He thanks you for your service. He asks if you slept well. You nearly say, "One of your cows harmonized in B minor next to my face," but catch yourself. Instead, you nod, mutter something about settling in, and grab your shepherd's crook, a stick really, with a bend that looks like it lost a fight with a goat. Admetus explains your routine. Lead the cattle to pasture near the river, keep them away from the thorny fig groves, return by sundown. If you see wolves, don't be a hero. If you see bandits, run. And for the love of the gods, don't let the oxen get into the grapevines again. So off you go, trudging barefoot beside 30 cows who are already humming like an off-key choir. As you walk, you start noticing things. Not divine things, those are out of reach for now, but earthly things. The warmth of the sun feels heavier. It doesn't rise at your command anymore. It just happens, slow and steady, without checking in with you. The ground beneath your feet has texture. Gravel, moss, the occasional thorn. You never noticed that before. Mortality, it turns out, is full of trivia. You reach the river meadow, a wide stretch of soft grass dappled in poppies. The cows munch lazily. You settle onto a rock and begin your new pastime, watching cows chew. It's not exactly poetry, but it has a rhythm, a kind of bovine zen. Then you remember something you read once. Yes, even gods read scrolls now and then. A mortal scholar claimed that cows chew in 4 stages. You watch carefully and count. Sure enough, bite, grind, swallow, regurgitate, chew again. A miracle of biology, right in front of you. You glance skyward, half expecting a bolt of lightning to reward your curiosity. Nothing. Just a cloud shaped like a fork. It's been a few days now since your punishment began, and you're starting to understand something mildly horrifying. You might actually be enjoying parts of this. Not the mud in your sandals or the daily embarrassment of sunburn, how ironic, but the rhythm of it, the gentle, pointless passage of time, the soft noise of chewing, the wind, the rustle of reeds, the fact that no one expects you to write odes or heal the plague. You're just here. Somewhere in the grass, a frog croaks. You croak back. The frog croaks again. You have a full 10-minute conversation with it before you remember you're a grown deity. And that's when you hear him again. Pheidon, the onion-scented boy. He appears at the edge of the field, holding a basket of figs and a smirk. "You still shine," he says, tilting his head, "even under all that dust." You blink. That's just the morning dew. Morning dew doesn't shimmer like a torch. You chew your fig slowly, considering your options. You could lie, or you could tell the truth and have him run screaming into town about a golden shepherd. Instead, you shrug. I moisturize. Pheidon seems satisfied with that, which says a lot about Thessalian skincare routines. He joins you for a while, lounging under a sycamore. He talks about his dog, who's afraid of sheep. He asks if you've ever seen a centaur. You've arm wrestled one, but say no. He wonders out loud why cows never seem in a hurry. It's because they know we'll wait, you say. He grins. That's deep. Did you make that up? You smirk. Maybe. Back at the palace that evening, Admetus seems impressed. The cattle look healthier already, he says. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You nod solemnly, trying not to picture the cows crooning a lullaby as they chew their cud. That night, you lie under the stars again, listening. Somewhere, far above, you imagine Artemis moving across the sky with her moon chariot. You wonder if she misses you. You wonder if she'd laugh at the sight of her twin covered in grass stains. The cows snore softly. Oh, lets out a musical burp in perfect pitch. You stifle a laugh. You close your eyes and drift. Not quite God, not quite mortal, just present. The roosters are late. You're already up, ankle deep in dew, trying to coax a sleepy calf out of a barrel it somehow wedged itself into overnight. You grunt, you tug gently, you mutter things no god should say about barrels, and finally the calf flops free with a disgruntled murm. It's been 3 weeks since your divine demotion, and you're beginning to wonder if this is Zeus's idea of comedy. You wipe your hands on your tunic and look out toward the horizon. The sky is streaked in rose and saffron, and you feel something stir in your chest. Not hunger or regret, exactly, but a kind of quiet curiosity. Because today, you're going to meet Admetus properly. Up until now, you've only exchanged pleasantries. Him thanking you for cowherding, you nodding politely and pretending you're not a celestial being with centuries of harp experience and a sun chariot on layaway. But now, Admetus has requested your presence, not as a servant, as a guest. So you scrub off the worst of the pasture grime in the stream, smooth your curls back into something vaguely presentable, and walk up the path toward the palace. Admetus's home is grand but lived in. Stone walls with ivy tendrils, carved lintels depicting heroes of yore, and a courtyard where chickens strut like they own the place. A fountain trickles in the center, shaped like a dolphin that clearly had artistic ambitions it didn't quite meet. You're shown into the Megaron, a large hall with columns, tapestries, and the warm scent of wood smoke and rosemary. Admetus is seated at a long wooden table, sipping watered wine and nibbling olives. When he sees you, he smiles like he's greeting an old friend. Come, he says. Sit. You've been working too hard. Let's talk. You sit, trying not to glow too much in the torchlight. A plate of cheese and flatbread appears in front of you, along with a fig that looks suspiciously like the one Pheidon handed you yesterday. Recycling snacks. Classic mortal move. Admetus is younger than you expected. 30, maybe. Sharp jaw, tired eyes, hands that look like they've gripped reins more than scrolls. He's a ruler, yes, but not the kind who points and orders. He listens. So, he says, studying you, you've been doing wonders with the herd. You resist the urge to say, well, I am the god of animal husbandry, among other things. Instead, you smile and reply, cows like music. He chuckles. Is that your secret? You shrug. Could be. There's a pause. A long one. The kind where mortals usually squirm. Admetus doesn't. He leans forward slightly. You know, he says, I've heard things. Your spine tenses, just slightly. Oh? There's a rumor going around. That our new cow herd came from the east. Lycia, was it? Yes, you say evenly. Funny thing, the priests in Lycia sing songs to Apollo. Say he walks among them in the spring. You look down at your fig. Gods do strange things, you murmur. He says. They do. But he doesn't press. Instead, he pours you more wine and launches into a story about a lion that got drunk and wandered into the palace kitchen last summer. Apparently, it tried to eat a ham and fell asleep in the pantry. The servants still whisper about the lion of Dionysus. You laugh, for real this time. The mental image alone is worth the stomachache. Over the next hour, Admetus tells you more about his people, his land, the strange dreams he's been having lately. Dreams where a golden figure walks among the olive trees, singing to sleeping cattle. You pretend to sip your wine and say, "That sounds like a nice dream." He glances at you sideways. "Yes," he says, "it is." The conversation turns. He asks about your past, where you came from, why you chose this life. And you pause. Because you can't say the truth. I offended my father, king of gods, and now I'm serving time on earth like it's divine community service. So you make something up. You tell him you're a wandering minstrel turned herdsman, that you left the East in search of peace and purpose, that cows are quieter than cities. He listens, absorbing every word, like he's storing your story somewhere behind his ribs. I like that, he says softly. Peace and purpose. That's rare. Before you leave, he places a hand on your shoulder. Mortal, warm, steady. Thank you, he says, for the cattle, for being here. I don't know why, but it feels like you were meant to come. You nod, throat suddenly thick. That night, you lie under the stars again, heart heavier than usual. You think about Admetus, the mortal king who sees too much and asks too little. You think about your role here, not just herding, but watching, listening, blending in, learning. And for the first time since your punishment began, you don't dread the morning, even if it starts with a cow trying to lick your ear. Morning breaks over the Thessalian fields with a softness you're still not used to. No fanfare, no flaming chariot pulled by solar stallions, just golden light creeping across the pasture like a shy cat. You sit on a fence post, watching the mist rise in curly tendrils from the grass, while your herd wakes up with groans, snorts, and at least one high-pitched moo that sounds suspiciously like a soprano warming up. Today's task is simple in theory. Take the cows to a new grazing field just beyond the fig groves. You've already scouted it. Lush, green, plenty of shade. But getting the herd there means navigating a series of muddy ditches, 2 prickly olive copses, and a slope that your left, sandaled deeply disrespects. Pheidon meets you halfway through lashing together a gate you accidentally snapped in half this morning. You coming to the river path? You nod, handing him the rope, while trying not to think about how godhood apparently doesn't come with a warranty for carpentry. The two of you lead the cows slowly through the fields. The soundscape is oddly pleasant. Swishing tails, distant frogs, Pheidon humming something vaguely rhythmic, and the squelch of your sandal as it fills with mud. Halfway up the ridge, a cow bolts. Not a run exactly, more of a proud, lumbering skip into the bushes. You give chase, weaving between olive trees like an angry gardener. By the time you corner her, she's chewing a mouthful of fig leaves and looking entirely unrepentant. You sigh, flick a small branch at her flank, and she trots back down the hill, tail swaying like she won the argument. You're adjusting to this strange existence now. Days shaped by routine, not prophecy. Mornings filled with chasing cows, not composing hymns. It's oddly freeing, but still, your divine nature finds little ways to leak through. The grass you walk on seems to grow faster. The sickly calf from last week is now galloping like a goat on festival day, and you swear the river reeds near the meadow sway in rhythm to your breathing. Pheidon notices. Did you always talk to cows? He asks as you help lift a bramble from the path. I don't talk to them, you say. I talk around them. He frowns. They moo back like they understand. You shrug. Maybe I've got a good accent. He squints. You're not from around here, are you? You smile in that infuriatingly vague way gods do when mortals get too close to the truth. Later, after the cows are settled and chewing contentedly on clover, you find a moment alone. You sit on a smooth rock by the water's edge, watching reflections ripple and reform. You remember being here in another time, another shape, perhaps during one of your seasonal descents to Earth. The river seems to remember you too. It hums, slow and ancient, like a lullaby sung by stones. You place your hand in the water and whisper, "How long must I stay?" A breeze lifts, the reeds sway. The river offers no answer. Back at the palace, the kitchen boy brings you a bowl of something thick and grayish. Porridge, allegedly. You eat it politely, ignoring the fact that it tastes like punishment in grain form. Admetus joins you near the hearth, rubbing his hands together. "I've heard rumors," he says. "Some say the cattle are bewitched. Others say you're blessed." You keep stirring your porridge. Cows are simple creatures. They respond to kindness. He smiles. Not usually in three-part harmony. You choke on your spoon and cover it with a cough. "Coincidence," you mutter. He gazes into the fire for a moment. You're different. Not just the glowing skin and the cows that hum, though yes, that's quite a giveaway. You stare at the flames, watching them flicker in the reflection of your spoon. Is it so strange, you ask, that someone might come here just to be quiet for a while? He nods slowly. No, I understand that more than you know. He doesn't ask again, doesn't pry. Instead, he tells you about his favorite hunting dog, now retired and sleeping under the hearth like a pile of bones in a shaggy blanket. You scratch behind the dog's ears and feel something warm stir in your chest. Attachment, the mortal kind. That night, as you return to the field to sleep under your usual poplar tree, the cows greet you with a low moan that rises, harmonizes, and settles into what might generously be called a lullaby. You lie down on your woven mat of reeds and wool, pull your cloak tight against the cool air, and stare up at the stars. You know where your constellation should be. But tonight the stars seem to shift subtly, forming unfamiliar shapes. Maybe it's the grass fumes, maybe it's the pour, udge, or maybe you're changing. You never thought you'd get used to dirt beneath your fingernails. But here you are, counting stars, listening to a bovine bedtime choir, and realizing that humility has a strange way of softening the soul. By now, you've perfected the rhythm of cow herding. Your body knows when the dew starts to lift, when the flies come out to pester the weaker calves, and when it's safe to nap for precisely 23 minutes without the herd wandering into a patch of thorned myrtle. You've even trained two of the more responsive cows, Irene and Stompy, to respond to whistles. Irene trots over sweetly when summoned. Stompy mostly headbutts your thigh, but you've decided to interpret it as affection. You are, in short, becoming something that you never imagined. Proficient at pastoral life. And it's doing something to your mind. Without temples to supervise, worshippers to impress, or lyres to tune, your thoughts have begun to expand outward, or maybe inward. Days stretch like warm dough, and you fill them with reflection. You find yourself pondering questions that never mattered when you rode across the sky in a blaze of glory. What does it mean to serve? What is joy when you're not being praised for it? Is a cow's contentment more pure than a god's pride? You lean on your crook, gazing at the horizon, and you realize you've stopped expecting divine signs. You're not looking for thunderheads shaped like hands, or eagles carrying scrolls, or Hermes skywriting snarky messages with clouds. You're here, just here. And that's kind of beautiful, but your past self wouldn't recognize you. Back in Olympus, you were fire and brilliance and poetry carved into sunlight. Here, you're a man with hay in his tunic, sunburn on your earlobes, and a long conversation scheduled with Pheidon about whether cows can feel love. Spoiler, you suspect they can. You've even taken to playing. Music again, quietly, on a reed pipe you whittled one evening with a small knife and far too much misplaced confidence. It squeaks, often, but when it works, the cows gather close, breathing in rhythm, tails swishing like sleepy metronomes. And yes, you still shine a little. Not as much as before, but enough that Pheidon has started calling you Gold Shoulder. It's meant as a joke, but you've stopped correcting him. One afternoon, as you lounge in the shade of a mulberry tree, Pheidon flops down beside you and asks, "Do you think the gods ever get bored?" You raise an eyebrow. "You think they don't?" He grins. "I just figured they were always busy, smashing mortals, falling in love, turning people into goats." You nod solemnly. That takes up most of their calendar. He throws a fig at you. "No, seriously, do you think they ever just sit like this? Think?" You don't answer right away, because you know the truth. Most of them don't. They scheme, they punish, they play their roles, but rarely do they stop and breathe. You wonder what Artemis would think if she could see you now, legs stretched, tunic wrinkled, hands sticky with fruit, asking cows deep questions about moral philosophy. "Maybe that's why I like it here," you finally say. Pheidon blinks. "Because it's boring?" "No," you say, smiling. "Because it's quiet." Later that week, you meet an old shepherd named Thessaly, who insists on showing you how to predict rain using the way sheep sneeze. He smells like vinegar and carries a walking stick carved with symbols you vaguely recognize from Minoan temple walls. "Storm's coming," he tells you, poking the air with his stick. "Goats were twitchy. That means wind." You nod, partly amused, partly curious. Mortal knowledge is surprisingly poetic when it's not trying to be. He tells you stories, too, about a haunted orchard where the peaches glow, about a nymph that lives in a walnut tree and curses loud talkers, about the time he saw a flaming chariot fly overhead and assumed it was a comet, though the timeline matches your last joyride to Crete a little too well. As you listen, something shifts. You begin to understand that myths and truths live side by side down here. Mortals blend them like herbs in a stew, some for flavor, some for medicine, some just to keep the neighbors curious. And honestly, it works. The next day, you're leading the cows toward the far ridge when you find something strange. A ring of mushrooms, perfectly circular, glistening with dew even though the grass is dry. A fairy ring, mortals would call it. In Olympus, you wouldn't have looked twice. But now, you stop, you watch, you breathe, you even step around it, just in case. Later that evening, a local girl offers you a charm made from woven reeds. "It's for protection," she says, eyes wide, "against wild spirits." You accept it with a smile and tie it around your wrist. Does it work? You're a god. You don't need protection. But the charm feels kind, rooted, made with intention, and that somehow feels more potent than ambrosia. That night, you dream of light, not burning, not blinding, but soft, like moonlight on milk, like candlelight on old parchment. You wake before dawn, your head full of riddles, your body sore from sleeping at odd angles, but your mind feels still, peaceful, almost mortal. And you realize, humility is not the absence of power. It's the quiet strength that doesn't need to remind the world who you are. You've made a fatal mistake. Not tragic, not myth-worthy, just humbling. You, the former god of sunlight, lord of radiant perfection, have managed to get sunburned. Not metaphorically, not as an ironic aside. You are standing in the courtyard of Admetus's palace, shoulders glowing a splotchy pink, with the distinct sensation of being roasted like an early summer goat on a festival spit. Your nose is peeling, your ears sting. And to make matters worse, Pheidon keeps offering you olive oil for shine. You regret many things about your descent into mortality. The smell of damp wool, the foot-blistering sandals, but this reddening of divine skin under mortal sunlight, feels like Zeus's pettiest flourish. Didn't you used to be the sun? Pheidon snickers, elbowing you as you gingerly apply mud to your collarbone. You glare. Allegedly, bet Helios never forgot his sunscreen. You mumble something about divine overcast and hobble back to the shade like a defeated crab. Your glow, once admired, now sizzles in streaks and patches. The cows seem unimpressed. Even Stompy looks at you with the expression of a creature who knows you've lost moral authority. And yet there's something funny about it, being undone by your own former domain. You, who once drove the golden chariot across the sky, now brought low by one unassuming midday nap near the river. Historians still argue whether this part of your tale is metaphorical, sun god scorched by hubris, or just the inevitable result of an overly long lunch break in an open field. Either way, you decide to take it in stride, with aloe and humility. You return to the palace for the evening meal, still pink, still flaking, and get an immediate eye roll from Admetus. Rough day? Didn't realize mortals had to survive the sun. He pours you a cup of watered wine and chuckles. Most of us don't do it with such style. You've been sharing more moments like this with him lately. Brief conversations over roasted onions and flatbread, sometimes stretching into long silences that don't feel awkward. He's a good listener, Admetus. He doesn't fill the air with noise. He lets things settle. Tonight, as the others drift off to their chambers, he stays beside the fire. Ling a bit of olive wood into something vaguely bird-shaped. You sit with your mug, letting the warmth soak into your skin, carefully this time. No repeat sunburns. Do you miss it? He asks without looking up. You know what he means. Sometimes, you say. He nods. I used to train with the royal chariot teams when I was young. I missed the speed. You glance sideways. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I imagine, he says. It's a lot harder to enjoy the ground when you're always above it. That lands differently. You stare into the fire, watching the logs shift and pop. He doesn't push, just hands you the half-finished bird and says, "For your trouble." You take it, surprised by how well it fits in your hand. Simple, imperfect, real. The next morning, you venture into the village for the first time since arriving. Admetus insists it's safe, that people won't question a glowing stranger if he comes with fresh cheese. You carry a basket. Mortals greet you. A child waves at you with fingers covered in pomegranate juice. You pass by a seamstress mending robes and a flute player coaxing melodies from a hollowed gourd. An old man sleeps beneath a fig tree with a cat on his chest. Life here moves gently, like a lullaby with no end. A woman stops you at the market. She squints at your face and says, "You remind me of someone. Are you a cousin of Glaucus?" You blink. Yes, distant cousin. Twice removed. She nods. Thought so. Same cheekbones. You leave with goat cheese and a newfound respect for Glaucus. But what strikes you most is how easy it is to be here. You thought your glow would draw attention, but no one minds. People wave, kids laugh, dogs sniff your sandals. You're just part of the scenery now. You help an old man lift a sack of barley. You carry water jars for a group of young women who thank you in chorus. You realize that even without divine powers, your presence still comforts, still heals in some small way. Later, as the sun dips low and the cows file back into their pasture with a musical sighs, you sit beside the river and feel something you rarely allowed yourself as a god. Contentment. Not the smug kind that comes from worship or admiration, but the quiet version. the kind that hums in your chest like a reed pipe on a warm afternoon. You hold the olive wood bird Admetus carved and think, maybe being low to the ground isn't a punishment. Maybe it's a privilege. You're not sure exactly when it started, but your cows are definitely singing. At first it was subtle. A low hum here, a soft bellow in minor key there. You chalked it up to coincidence, a trick of wind through reeds, or maybe your own desperate longing for music whispering through your memory. But now they're harmonizing. You sit in the meadow surrounded by grazing cattle, and Irene the cow is quite clearly holding a droning bass note while two calves warble something resembling a chorus. You blink, you squint, you rub your eyes with the sleeve of your increasingly tattered tunic. Nope, still singing cows. It's not melodic exactly. It's not destined for Olympus radio, but it is coordinated. Deep, moaning tones that rise and fall in loosely structured patterns. It's like Gregorian chant filtered through a throat full of grass. Do you hear that? You whisper to Pheidon. He tilts his head, chewing on a plum. Sounds like they're sleepy? Sleepy and in a Dorian mode, you mutter. He shrugs. Cows are weird. That's putting it mildly. You lie back on the sun-warmed earth, arms behind your head, and let the music wash over you. Somewhere in the distance, a breeze rustles the trees, and a crow coughs theatrically, as if critiquing the performance. It makes sense in a way. Your presence is affecting them. Even stripped of your godhood, you're still you, and Apollo is nothing if not musical. Historians still argue whether these bovine concerts were hallucinations, metaphors, or just incredibly embellished pastoral poetry. But you know what you heard, and you're hearing it again. You glance at Irene. Please don't start a solo. She lifts her head, moos once, perfect pitch, and then goes back to chewing. Too late. Word gets around quickly. Farmers start coming by the pasture to check on the herd. Women bring offerings of barley bread. A traveling bard named Lycon lingers near the fence for hours, scribbling something on a wax tablet and muttering things like, revolutionary use of meter. Admetus calls you into his hall that evening, pouring wine and folding his hands like a man about to address a divine paradox. So, the cows. You raise an eyebrow. They're talented. You try to play dumb. Strong lungs. He sighs. Do I even want to know? You lean on the table, eyes twinkling. Do you want to be the king of the only harmonic herd in Thessaly? He chuckles. Honestly, I've been king of worse. And so begins the strange new chapter of your shepherdhood. Impromptu field concerts. Locals come bearing fruit and curiosity. You play your reed pipe. The cows moo in reply. Children dance. Old men weep. One woman claims she felt her rheumatism ease just by lying next to the vibrating soil. You try not to smile too smugly. This is technically work. Pheidon starts selling blessed cow milk on the side. He claims it helps with insomnia and artistic inspiration. You let it slide. He's saving up for a new tunic. One evening, after a particularly spirited session, a poet named Timaretta lingers behind. She's tall, silver-haired, and carries a stack of wax tablets tucked under one arm like a bundle of secrets. She walks up to you as the last of the audience trickles away. You've done something here, she says. You nod. Trying to keep things lively. No, she says, frowning thoughtfully. Not lively. Alive. You've made something breathe. These people feel wonder again. You blink. No one's spoken to you like that since Delos. You're not just a shepherd, she says gently. I don't know what you are, but you carry old light. You say nothing, just smile. She bows her head and leaves. Later that night, Admetus joins you by the fire. He brings figs, which is his way of saying, Let's talk about strange things without making it official. He sits for a while, chewing slowly. Then, without looking at you, says, "My wife says the cow's song cured her headaches." You nod. "I've started dreaming differently," he adds. "It's not voices, just light, moving through trees. Sometimes I see you in the dream. You stir the coals. Do you ask me anything?" He chuckles. "You don't talk, you just play music and walk away." You don't know what to say. For the first time in weeks, words elude you. He pats your shoulder. "I don't need answers," he says. "Just glad you're here." The cows moo in the distance. Harmony, low and gentle. You fall asleep with your reed pipe in your hand, the song of the herd still vibrating faintly in the ground beneath your spine. And somewhere in the stars, you imagine the muses leaning forward, smiling. If you were still a god, this would be the moment you sent down a cryptic dream or a flash of lightning shaped like a helpful diagram. Instead, you are standing on a wooden stage made of cart planks, holding a cowbell, while Admetus prepares to host the festival of fertility and fresh milk. Yes, that's what he's calling it. You glance around the town square, which has been hastily decorated with garlands of wildflowers, draped linen banners, and a slightly concerning number of amphorae labeled Reserve Fig Wine. Pheidon has rigged together a curtain of vines, and someone painted your name, well, your alias, which he spelled Paulo, on a jug near the podium. You take a deep breath. It smells like wet hay and enthusiasm. The locals are gathering. Children wearing laurel crowns skip around your feet. An old woman plays a ode to Riud, knee-string lyre with the determination of a woman fighting the instrument. A goat bleats theatrically from the audience. Admetus beams beside you. "They're ready," he whispers. "You sure your cows will perform?" You raise your eyebrows. "They've been rehearsing all week." Which is technically true. You've been piping little melodies at night, encouraging them to vocalize. It's still unclear whether they enjoy it or if they're just being polite out of mystical instinct, but either way, they hum now. On cue. Mostly. The crowd hushes. Admetus steps forward. "Friends, family, fellow cheese lovers, welcome." The cheers are loud. A small child throws a garland that lands squarely on your head. It smells like onions. "We gather," Admetus continues, "to celebrate the bounty of our fields, the strength of our herds, and the miraculous soundscape provided by our very own singing cows." The applause is awkward at first, but then you step forward, pipe in hand, and give a soft blow, a minor third. 2 cows respond with long, low moos, pitch perfect. The crowd gasps. You blow again, a different pattern. The calves join in, harmonizing. Even Stompy, notoriously grumpy and tone-deaf, lets out a triumphant grunt in perfect counterpoint. It's ridiculous. It's surreal. It's oddly moving. Pheidon throws his arms in the air. "The cow choir is real." A man in the back sobs into a jar of milk. You don't know when it happens exactly, but suddenly you're improvising. You play a slow melody, something mournful, ancient, part lullaby, part hymn. The cows respond, swaying slightly. The villagers fall silent, hands to hearts. For a moment, everything feels suspended. Time stops. Air thickens. And then someone sneezes loudly. The spell breaks. Laughter erupts. You bow with a dramatic flourish, and the cows moo in applause. You never thought you'd be giving concerts in a toga that smells like barn dust, but here you are, possibly the only divine entity to hold a standing ovation from both humans and Mosheram, livestock. After the performance, the festival erupts into celebration. There's dancing, wine, a man trying to juggle 3 turnips. You wander between stalls, accepting figs, pats on the back, and at least one unsolicited kiss on the cheek from an elderly basket weaver. A group of teenage girls shyly ask if you're half god or just very artistic. You tell them you're from Lycia and drink a whole cup of pomegranate wine to avoid elaborating. Admetus finds you an hour later, cheeks flushed, a crown of rosemary lopsided on his head. "You've turned my cows into celebrities," he says, laughing. "Better than oracles," you reply. "They're less cryptic." He claps you on the shoulder, then pauses. "There's something I've been meaning to ask." You glance at him. "Oh?" "You've given this town something I didn't think we could have again. Joy, wonder, a reason to stay up late." He smiles softly. "Why did you come here?" And again that old question tugs at you. You want to say punishment. You want to say Zeus has a flair for the theatrical. But you find yourself saying, maybe I needed reminding. Of what? That there's music in everything, you say. Even cows. Even silence. Admetus doesn't press. He never does. He just nods and looks out at the lantern-lit square where villagers sway to fiddles and sing songs off-key with total sincerity. You stay out late that night. Long after the wine has run out. Long after the music fades into distant laughter. You lie under the stars, arms folded behind your head, staring upward. And for the first time in years, centuries maybe, you don't wish you were up there. You're content right here, with your ridiculous, miraculous, melodious cows. It starts with a look, not a long, smoldering gaze across a columned hall, not a tragic glint from a veiled maiden by a fountain. Just a moment, casual, sunlit, easily missable. When you glance up from scratching Stompy's ear and see Admetus looking at Alcestis like she's the only real thing in a world full of illusions, you pause, elbow deep in cow hair, and think, oh no. Because you know that look. You've written odes about that look. It's the kind of love mortals rarely get right. Tender, unperformed, steady as sunrise. It makes your chest ache in a way you were not warned about when you signed up for this whole mortal punishment year. Alcestis is radiant. Not in the way you used to be, burning with solar glory, but with something deeper. She moves like she knows herself, and she speaks like the truth is a kindness, not a weapon. You've spoken with her a few times, casually. She asked about the herd, complimented your pipe playing, and once very sincerely inquired whether cows can cry. You told her probably not, but you've since seen one well up near a patch of wild onions, so who knows. Today, though, she's walking with Admetus through the orchard, arms linked, their laughter soft as fruit falling into grass. You pretend not to watch. You hum an old lullaby and try to act very interested in trimming hoof cracks. Pheidon catches you staring and smirks. You're not subtle, Gold Shoulder. I'm admiring the apple trees. Uh-huh. You swat him gently with your crook. He laughs and skips away, leaving you alone with the blooming realization that you are now part of a romantic subplot. And not the lead either. You're the divine wingman. So you do what any self-respecting ex-god would do. You meddle gently. You start piping soft music whenever they pass by. Subtle, atmospheric, the kind of melody that makes hearts beat slightly out of rhythm. You hum lullabies into the breeze, guide the herd toward romantic backdrops, golden light filtering through vines, cows lounging photogenically under flowering trees. It's shameless. It's possibly unethical. It's also very effective. One day, you find a wreath of hyacinths on Alcestis's favorite bench. The next, she's leaving figs fall, or Admetus near the temple hearth. There's even a brief moment in the grain storeroom when they nearly hold hands, but both sneeze at the same time and pretend it never happened. You're proud, and maybe a little wistful. Because watching love unfold is a different kind of power. One the gods rarely get to feel honestly. Sure, Aphrodite meddles, and Eros shoots arrows, and mortals fall swooning into dramatic fountains. But this clumsy, sincere, sheep wool on your tunic kind of love is something even Olympus can't manufacture. And you helped. Quietly, softly. One afternoon, Alcestis finds you by the river, polishing a pipe made from fig wood. She sits beside you without asking, hands folded in her lap. "Thank you," she says. You blink. "For what?" "For playing music," she says. "For making this place feel safe." You smile, modestly. "That's mostly the cows. I just play backup." She laughs. "You're kind." You raise an eyebrow. "Am I?" That's a first. She tilts her head, studying you. "You're not from here." You feign innocence. "Lycia." "You don't move like a man from Lycia." You pause, then say softly, "Maybe I'm just passing through." She nods, understanding more than you're saying. She looks out at the river, eyes distant. "You know," she says, "Admetus pretends to be brave all the time, but he talks in his sleep. He's scared." "Of what?" She hesitates. "Of time." You feel something twist in your chest, because you know what she means. Mortals feel time like pressure, like wind slipping through cracks. They fear the moment they stop having moments. And when they love, that fear doubles. That night, Admetus joins you by the pasture gate. "You've made something here," he says. You glance up. A flock of musical cows and mild emotional damage? He laughs, then grows quiet. "No, really, you've changed us." You want to say you changed ourselves. You want to say love did this. Instead, you just nod. "I think I'm going to ask her," he says suddenly. You pause. "To marry you?" He nods. "Is it foolish?" "Only if you're wrong. And if I'm right?" "Then it'll be the best kind of foolish." He smiles, hands in his pockets like a nervous farm boy instead of a king. Later, under the stars, you stare at the constellations and think about love, not the divine kind wrapped in curses and poetry, but this awkward, hopeful, very human kind. You've guided sunrises, you've inspired 1,000 hymns. But maybe this, watching two mortals find each other in a field of harmonizing cows, is the most sacred thing you've ever done. It starts with a shadow over your lunch. You're enjoying a rare moment of peace. Seated beneath a fig tree, your back against the trunk, legs stretched into the dappled grass, chewing on olives and leftover barley cake. The cows are scattered across the pasture like lazy clouds. The sun is warm, but not malicious today. You're just starting to hum a little tune to yourself, something light and old when the air shifts. A presence, not mortal, not even trying to pretend to be mortal. You look up, and there he is. Hermes, smirking, wearing sandals that don't touch the ground and a wide-brimmed traveler's hat tilted dramatically over one eyebrow. His cloak flaps despite the lack of wind. There's a lyre strapped to his back and a fresh pomegranate tucked under one arm like it owes him money. "Well, well, well," he says, surveying you like a particularly strange statue. "If it isn't the cowherd of Thessaly." You sigh and pop another olive into your mouth. "I'm on my break." He drops onto the grass beside you with zero invitation, pulling the pomegranate apart with casual, juicy violence. "You know," he says through a mouthful of seeds, "this whole pastoral act? Weirdly effective. You've become the talk of Olympus." You squint at him. "Really?" "Oh yes." Even Hera's curious. She said, and I quote, "Why is Apollo spending his exile braiding daisy chains and playing music to cows?" "They harmonize," you mutter defensively. He chuckles. "Oh, we know. We've heard the reports. Dionysus thinks you've started a cult. A soft-spoken, milk-forward cult. He's very intrigued." You shake your head, amused despite yourself. "Is this an official visit?" "Not really. I got bored. Needed a break from guiding the souls of poets who can't stop quoting themselves." He tosses a pomegranate seed at you. It bounces off your knee. "But now that I'm here," he says, stretching luxuriously, "I figured I'd check on my big brother, see if he's still glowing under all the sheep sweat." You snort. "Barely." Hermes looks at you. really looks this time, and something in his expression changes. "You're different," he says. You shrug. "That's kind of the point." "No, I mean really different." He leans back on his elbows, staring at the clouds. "You're quieter, slower, almost like you're enjoying this." You don't reply. Because the truth is, you are. You who once hurled plagues and serenaded kingdoms are now more fulfilled by cows and fig wine and watching a nervous king figure out love than you ever were commanding an army of bards. Hermes senses your silence and grins. "This is adorable. Don't you have someone to trick?" "Oh, always. But this is way more fun. I never thought I'd see the day when you became the patron god of good vibes and cow concerts." He tosses you a coin. You catch it without thinking. On one side is your old face, regal, stylized, untouchable. On the other side is a cow, wearing a laurel crown. You stare. "Souvenir," Hermes says. "I made it up. There'll be all the rage in Corinth." You tuck the coin into your satchel, shaking your head. "Seriously," he says, softer now. "You doing okay?" You nod. "Strangely, yes. Zeus will call you back soon. You know that, right?" You look out at the pasture, at the cows lazily blinking, in the sun. One of them is humming something suspiciously like a drinking song. "Yeah," you say. "I know." Hermes rises, brushing grass from his cloak. "When you get back, you'll have to deal with the usual nonsense. Prophecies, petitions, sacrifices, the works. You stand too. Can't wait." He smirks. "Lie better." Before he leaves, he pauses. "You've done good here. They like you. They think I'm from Lycia. Still, they like you. Not as a god, just you. That sticks with you." After he vanishes, no poof, no thunderclap, just gone. You walk back through the fields in silence, thinking about what it means to be liked as a person, not worshipped as a symbol. That evening, Admetus joins you by the pasture fence. He looks out at the cows and says, "You ever feel like you're living in someone else's story?" You glance at him. "All the time. I keep waiting for the moment it all ends, for the gods to notice I'm happy and take it away." You say nothing for a long time. Then, maybe that's the point. To live like it's real, even if it's borrowed. He smiles sadly. You speak like a man who's lost a lot. You nod. "And found things I didn't expect." That night, you lie on your back, eyes open, watching the stars shift like slow thoughts. And you wonder if the gods really are watching. If so, you hope they're taking notes. Because for once, your story isn't about power or prophecy. It's about patience, and cows, and the quiet kind of love that sneaks up on you between two verses of a field song and doesn't demand anything in return. You're not entirely sure how it happened. One moment, you were rotating grazing paths and checking hooves for rot. The next, your cows became legendary, not just locally, regionally. The herd is now considered a miracle, a blessing, a tourist attraction. One woman walked for 2 days just to touch Irene and then fainted after hearing her moo. You've tried to downplay it truly, but the problem is, they're magnificent. They're cows that shimmer, not gold, not literally, but with a kind of health and light that makes poets get weird ideas. Their milk smells faintly of honey. One calf was born with a pattern on its flank that, from the right angle, resembles a lyre. And yes, they still sing. Not constantly, just enough to make everyone believe that something divine is happening in the fields of Admetus. Even the cows have started acting differently. They stand taller. Their movements are more graceful. They respond to you with eerie attunement, often forming perfect circles when grazing, like a crop circle choreographer has taken up bovine management. You overhear a pair of shepherds whispering about you. He plays that flute, and they dance. No, I swear he glows when he touches their ears. I heard one of the calves speaks in riddles. All lies, mostly. You sit on a stump near the outer field and watch them graze, the sun draping them in soft amber. You feel proud, conflicted, amused, a bit worried, because they're becoming too perfect, too magical, too Apollo. You can't hide forever, and your herd is beginning to blow your cover. You ask Admetus about it, carefully. Do you ever think the herd is different? He gives you a long look. You mean besides their suspicious talent for rhythm? You hesitate. People talk. They always do, he says. But I know what I see. I see animals that are loved, well cared for, respected. He pats your shoulder. Maybe that's the real miracle. You try to believe him. But later that night, when you walk through the fields and your footsteps make the grass stand a little straighter, you wonder. The next morning, a delegation from a nearby village arrives. They've heard of your herd. They want to see them, study them, possibly breed with them. You do your best to maintain composure during this meeting, despite one of the elders asking if you, yourself, possess divine cow-whispering fertility powers. Pheidon nearly chokes on a date. The visitors bring gifts, fig jam, woven baskets, an unfortunate lute performance, and wait eagerly at the pasture's edge. You pipe a few notes. The cows respond, slowly, elegantly. They form a loose spiral, their hooves moving in time. They moo in harmonic thirds. One of them, Stompy, of all creatures, lets out a melodic lowing so pure it makes the visiting priest weep openly. You might have gone too far. Afterward, the visitors ask to touch your hands. They want blessings. They want advice. One woman asks if you'll name her child. You flee to the orchard. Under the shade of the fig trees, Alcestis finds you. She's carrying a jar of pomegranate juice and that same gentle knowing in her eyes. They love you, she says simply. You shake your head. They love the idea of me. She sits beside you. What's the difference? You exhale. I'm not what they think. She smiles. None of us are. That's never stopped people from needing us. You're quiet for a long while. Then she adds, you do something to the world when you walk through it. I've seen the grass bloom behind you. You look at her, startled. She meets your gaze, steady. I don't think you were sent here to hide. I think you were sent here to change things. You close your eyes and lean against the tree. The trunk is rough, familiar. The air smells like sap and sunlight. Maybe she's right. Maybe you didn't just inherit a herd. You shaped it. Maybe humility doesn't mean vanishing. Maybe it means choosing what kind of light to offer. That evening, you call the herd closer than usual. You play not to impress, but to connect. You walk among them, pipe in hand. No script, no ceremony. And they follow. Not like subjects, not like miracles, but like friends. You walk together beneath the stars, the whole herd swaying with you in rhythm, your song threading between them like a breeze through tall grass. O gods, no titles, just harmony, and for once the beauty you bring doesn't demand worship, just listening. The first time Admetus truly stares at you, really stares, you're up to your elbows in warm, slightly suspicious milk. You've been helping the dairy master separate curds all morning. It's messy, slow, and deeply humbling work. Your hands smell like old hay and cheese brine. Your knees hurt. You've got a smear of something unidentifiable across your forehead, and your once elegant Lycia tunic is now a canvas of tragic dairy stains. But when you look up from the wooden vat, there he is, standing in the doorway of the cheese shed, arms folded, head tilted, silent, watching you with narrowed eyes. You freeze. Need a wheel of something? He steps forward slowly, boots soft on the packed earth. No, he says. I just wanted to see you work. There's something in his tone. Not admiration, not suspicion, something in between. You wipe your hands on your tunic, which at this point can't be saved by divine intervention, and raise an eyebrow. Well, impressed? He smiles faintly. Confused, more like. Because I'm very good at curds? Because you don't belong here. You stiffen. There it is. He walks past you, running his fingers over a hanging wheel of hard cheese like it might offer answers. You speak like a man who's lived 100 lives. You move like a trained dancer. You know things no one's taught you, and your cows sing. You open your mouth, then close it. He turns to face you. I've let it go, out of respect, but I've been king long enough to know when a storm is hiding in a field of clover. You meet his gaze, steady. What would you do with the truth? He doesn't blink. That depends on the shape of it. The silence between you stretches, curdles. Then he sighs and steps back. I'm not asking you to confess. I just want to know. If yo, I'll stay. You blink, because that wasn't the question you were expecting. I'm not from here, you say slowly. I figured. I may not be here much longer. He nods, lips pressing into a thin line. Still, I'd like to know what it feels like to trust someone like you. And with that, he leaves. You sit there in the cheese shed, surrounded by the aroma of aging dairy and the muffled thrum of your still harmonizing herd, and you think, he knows, or something close to it. The next few days are quiet in that way that follows a subtle earthquake. Nothing visibly broken, but everything shifted a degree. Admetus doesn't ask again, but his eyes linger longer. His questions get deeper. He starts inviting you to private dinners, not as a servant, not as entertainment, but as a guest. He wants to know how you see the world, what you think of justice, of fate, of the way fig trees twist toward light even when it takes them years. You try to keep your answers vague. You fail. Because you like him. You, Apollo, god of order and poetry and hubris, like this mortal man, not just for his kindness, but for his clarity, his refusal to dominate, his quiet loyalty to the people who need him. He's not flashy, he's not tragic, he's just real. And that is beginning to matter more to you than all the hymns ever written in your name. Then one evening, as you walk past the outer field, you find him waiting there, alone, leaning against the gate, watching the sunset. You stop. Say nothing. He glances over. Do you ever wish you could start over? The question hangs in the air like smoke. You nod. I'm trying. He smiles. You're doing better than you think. The two of you stand there in silence, watching the last light spill over the pasture, turning the herd into silhouettes. And for a moment, just one, you forget everything. Olympus, chariots, penance, power. It's just two men, two friends, a field, a shared dusk. But deep down, you know this peace can't last. It's fragile, borrowed. You sense the story turning. And somewhere far off, though you can't hear it yet, the thread of fate begins to tighten. The river is talking again. Not loudly, not with words exactly, but with ripples that rise and swirl in impossible patterns, and reeds that sway against the wind, and little glimmers of light that flicker just beneath the surface like stars trapped underwater. You kneel on the muddy bank, watching the reflections shift. Your pipe lies beside you, unused. Your hands are clasped, not in prayer, but in a quiet stillness, like a listener waiting for a story that's already begun. It's a strange thing, returning to the river like this. You haven't come here for days, maybe weeks. You've been busy, with cows, with people, with pretending not to be a god while acting suspiciously like one. But now something stirs in you, a tug, a need for answers no mortal can give. So here you are, pressing your palms to the cool, wet ground, eyes half closed, heart open. "Do you know me?" you whisper. The water eddies. You lean forward slightly. "Do you remember when I came here in fire?" A fish jumps in the shallows. A ripple catches the edge of your reflection and warps it into something less you. Not a shepherd, not a god. Something in between. The river doesn't answer in words, of course, but it responds. The reeds bow. The current changes direction. The glinting shapes under the surface swirl faster. You close your eyes. You've always known rivers were living things. Every god worth their salt respects the old waters, whether they babble or roar. This one, quiet and unassuming as it is, carries memory, and you suspect it's watched you longer than you've watched it. So you try again. What happens next? A breeze kicks up, tugging your hair across your face. Somewhere behind you, a frog croaks. The reeds part. A low voice, not heard, but felt, rolls through your chest like distant thunder. "What ye love, you will lose, but what you give lives on." You sit back, blinking. That wasn't in your head. You look around, suddenly cold. The cows in the distance are still grazing peacefully. The sky is blue. The world goes on. But something in you has shifted. You pick up your pipe and begin to play. Not for the herd this time, not for Admetus or Alcestis, but for the river. A slow, trembling melody full of unanswered questions and truths you're not ready to speak aloud. The river listens. You can feel it. Later that evening, you tell Pheidon about your visit. He's sitting upside down on a hay bale because he claims it helps with circulation and perspective. "Rivers are weird," he says, chewing on a plum pit. "My cousin swears one gave him a riddle about goats." Did he answer it? No, he tried to eat a water beetle instead. Got sick for a week. You nod. Seems about right. But the words stay with you. What you love, you will lose. Because you're beginning to see the shape of the ending, even if you don't want to. Time has a scent, and you can smell it now, like distant thunder or figs gone soft on the branch. Admetus has grown quieter, more thoughtful. He walks the fields at dusk with a look in his eyes like he's memorizing everything. He spends more time with Alcestis, their conversations softer, their laughter slower. You're not the only one who feels it. One night, Admetus invites you to sit with him near the hearth. Just the two of you. No wine, no music. Just the crackle of logs and the faint murmur of distant cattle. "I dreamed again," he says. You look at him. "The one with the trees?" He nods. "But this time, you weren't in it." You wait. "I followed a path through the woods. There was singing, but I couldn't find the source. Just echoes." You exhale. "Dreams don't lie, but they don't always tell the truth the way we want it." He nods slowly. "I know something's coming. I just don't know if I'm ready." You want to say that no one is ready, that even immortals flinch in the face of endings. Instead, you place a hand on his shoulder. "You're stronger than you know." He smiles faintly. Said like someone who's watched a lot of endings. You don't deny it. Later, as you lie in the field and listen to the cows sigh in their sleep, you stare at the moon and think about what the river said. You've spent your lives, creating, performing, shining. But now, maybe the most divine thing you can do is give. Give music, give peace, give courage. And when the time comes, give them a chance to carry the light forward, even without you. You find them near the vineyard, just past the outer fence. 2 lovers and a lion. No, really, a lion. It's crouched in the shadows, half hidden in the vines, eyes gleaming in the early evening light like twin embers. The couple, barely older than Pheidon, is oblivious. The boy is reciting something that might be poetry, while the girl looks politely interested, nodding in the way mortals do when they're humoring ambition. You are, briefly, impressed that he's kept talking despite the massive feline about 10 paces away. Then, you act. You grab a fallen olive branch, your options are limited, and approach, making soft, firm clicks with your tongue, the way Artemis once taught you when calming wild beasts. The lion turns to you. For a moment, it's just breath and eyes and an enormous set of teeth. Then it blinks, and yawns, and lays its head on its paws like it's bored. You lower the branch, slightly insulted. The couple finally notices the creature. The girl shrieks. The boy lets out a very heroic sound, not unlike a hiccup. They both cling to each other, eyes wide. "Don't run," you say gently. "Just walk." They walk, fast, awkward, still clinging. You keep your body between them and the lion until they're gone, then turn back to the beast. It watch, as you, tail flicking lazily. "Let me guess," you murmur. "You're not just a lion." And then it speaks, not aloud, not in mortal words, but in the old way, the language of signs and feelings, shape and symbol. You remember me, and you do. Barely, dimly, a creature from the old days, born of divine breath and mortal soil, a guardian of thresholds, a whisper of something wild and loyal and lost. "Why are you here?" you ask, more breath than voice. The lion stretches, stands, and walks in a slow circle around you. It moves like time, quiet, heavy, unbothered, to remind you. Of what? That you are not done. You close your eyes. You'd hoped, maybe, that this strange life of cows and quiet could stretch a little longer, that the old stories would leave you alone. But of course, they don't. They never do. You open your eyes again. The lion is gone. You exhale slowly and walk back toward the palace, your steps slower than before. The next morning, the 2 lovers you saved come to the pasture with gifts: a jar of honey, a garland, an awkward, earnest poem. "Thank you," the boy says, "for whatever it was you did." You nod. Sometimes just standing between danger and someone else is enough. The girl places the garland around your neck. "You're not just a cowherd," you smile faintly. "Don't tell the cows." Later you find Admetus in the orchard, looking over the harvest plans. "There was a lion," you say. He looks up. "A what?" You sit beside him and explain, sparing the mystical details, just enough to get the point across. He listens carefully. When you finish, he says, "Do I need to be worried?" "No," you say. "But I do." He watches you for a long time. Then, "Will you have to go soon?" You nod. "Not today, but soon." He closes the book and places a hand on your shoulder. "Then let's make today matter." That night, you sit with Pheidon and Alcestis beneath the stars, telling stories about the ancient constellations. Your version, the real one, not the filtered myths. You tell them about Orion's loud snoring, about how Leo once bit a god's sandal, about how Cassiopeia still sulks on her star throne because no one sings about her anymore. They laugh. They listen. They remember. And you realize something important. Maybe the lion wasn't a warning. Maybe it was a blessing. A reminder that your time here isn't an accident. It's a choice. A chapter. And before it closes, there's still more light to give. You wake to chaos in the orchard. Shouts, snapping branches, One very distressed farmer hollering, "It's back again! The tusked demon!" You groggily pull on your tunic, half stumble into your sandals, and jog toward the noise, crook in hand, hair wild, still tasting last night's fig wine on your tongue. And there it is, a boar. Not just any boar, a huge, bristling creature with tusks like ivory scythes and eyes that gleam with the distinct expression of "I do what I want, and I do it with hooves." It's rampaging through the orchard, knocking over baskets, snorting at trees, and snuffling aggressively at Admetus's prized pear sapling. You pause at the edge of the grove and assess the scene. 3 farmers are throwing sticks, one is weeping over his overturned cider barrel, and a 5th is standing on a crate yelling vague encouragements like, "Make yourself loud, not threatening." You sigh. "Typical," you mutter, striding into the fray. The boar spots you. It freezes, snorts, and charges. Time slows. You breathe. You don't have your bow. You don't have your divine strength. You do have an olive branch, some experience with large mammals, and the kind of calm that comes from having once wrestled a river spirit in a thunderstorm just to settle a bet. You step sideways at the last second, place one hand on the boar's shoulder, and whisper something in a language that no longer exists on any scroll. It howl, snorts, and sits. The farmers gape. You kneel beside the beast, pressing your hand gently to its hide. Its breath slows. The anger melts away. What's left is something tired. You meet its gaze and say softly, "You're not here to destroy. You're here because something's wrong." The boar huffs. You let it go. It ambles off into the trees, quieter than it came, leaving only a trampled path and a lot of stunned peasants in its wake. Pheidon appears beside you, munching on a stolen plum. "You're weird," he says. "You say that like it's new. You talk to it. I calmed it." He nods. "Still weird." Admetus arrives a few moments later, flanked by guards. He takes in the flattened orchard, the cow herd standing like nothing happened, and the boar tracks vanishing into the trees. "You all right?" he asks. "I'm fine." He looks around. "Anyone else hurt?" "Only someone's pride," Pheidon mumbles, pointing at the crate speech farmer. You and Admetus walk the grove together after the others disperse. The pears are bruised, a few saplings snapped, but nothing fatal. "You didn't kill it," he says quietly. You shake your head. "Didn't need to." He watches you. "You could have." "Of course." "But you chose not to." You glance at him. "You're still surprised by that?" "No," he says. "Not anymore." You stop beside the broken pear tree. He runs his hand along the split trunk. "It's strange," he says, "how something wild can come tearing through your life and still be worth forgiving." You nod. Sometimes the wild thing isn't the threat, it's the teacher. He looks at you, something deeper moving behind his eyes. "Are you the wild thing?" he asks softly. You smile. "I think I'm the orchard." The next day, the story spreads through town. The boar whisperer, the tamer of Tusk. One child claims you turned into a cloud of bees and reassembled on the boar's back. You don't bother correcting them. Instead, you gather the children in the meadow and tell a version of the tale where the boar came seeking a song, and the orchard's moyo, sick, healed its rage. You give it rhythm. You give it peace. And the children believe you, not because it's true, but because it feels true. Alcestis visits that evening with a basket of bruised pears turned into a tart. You eat it together under the stars. "You let it go," she says. "Of course." Most wouldn't. Most never learned how. She's quiet for a while. Then, "You're teaching more than you realize." You glance up. "I think that's what you're here for," she adds. You want to believe that, and maybe you do. Because lately, everything you've done, the hurting, the music, the mercy, It all feels like a kind of quiet teaching, one without scrolls, one without sermons. Just example, just presence. And as the tart sweetness lingers on your tongue and the crickets chirp in perfect sync with your heartbeat, you think, maybe this year isn't a punishment at all. Maybe it's a gift. The scent of home sneaks up on you. One moment you're combing burrs out of Stompy's increasingly dramatic tail, and the next, there it is. A thread of heat and incense and sunlight so bright it lives behind your eyes. It's not from this place. It never was. It's Olympus, and it's bleeding into your mind like it never left. You freeze, fingers wrapped around a clump of bristly fur as memories surge forward, uninvited and too vivid. The polished marble of your sunlit temple, the rustle of white robes echoing in prayer chambers, the golden notes of your lyre drifting down from the high halls of the gods, the thrum of immortality in your blood like a drumbeat you were born knowing. You blink and find yourself back in the field, face full of cow hair, knees muddy, sunburn faintly peeling across your shoulders. You've been doing well, adapting, changing. But today, something cracks. You miss it. The chariot, the divinity, the absolute effortless rightness of being you at Pheidon. Ill power. You stand slowly, brushing straw from your tunic, heart heavy, the cows low softly around you, unconcerned. Pheidon waves from across the pasture, chasing two calves who've stolen a laundry rope. But you're somewhere in between. You walk to the stream, the same one you've crossed 100 times now. Today, you kneel beside it differently, not with reverence, but with longing. You speak quietly. Is it wrong to want it back? The water gurgles on, unsentimental. You lie on the grass, staring upward. The sky is bluer than it should be. That's always how it starts, when Olympus begins to pull at you. The world leans slightly toward the immortal. You feel it in your spine, in the way the wind moves slower around your limbs, in the way your reflection looks less human today. You're glowing again. Not enough to alarm anyone, just enough to remind yourself, this body is temporary. Later that evening, Admetus finds you in the orchard. You've been quiet, he says. You shrug. Some days feel further away than others. He nods, picking a fig and examining it like it holds the answer. There's talk. You glance at him. About the cows again? No, he says. About you. You sigh. He steps closer. They say you're changing, that you're less like us now. You look down at your hands. They still bear calluses from the work. They still carry the scent of earth and wood smoke, but they're glowing faintly at the fingertips. I'm not doing it on purpose. I believe you. He pauses. But you're not staying, are you? You don't answer. You don't need to. The silence says everything. Admetus exhales slowly. I've never told you this, but when you arrived, I thought you were a punishment. For me. You look at him, startled. I'd just made a series of mistakes, bad calls. I'd lost good men in a pointless skirmish, turned away offerings out of pride. Then you appeared, radiant and cryptic, hiding behind sheep. You chuckle softly. That does sound suspicious. But it wasn't punishment, he continues. It was grace. You swallow hard. You're making it harder to leave. He smiles sadly. That's not my goal. I just want you to know. You mattered. Even if this was never supposed to last. You nod. And that night, when the stars feel closer than usual, when your dreams start humming in ancient dialects again, you don't resist it. You climb a hill just outside town, your pipe tucked under your arm, and you play a song that doesn't belong to this world. It echoes into the dark like a memory being unburied. The cows gather at the base of the hill, quiet, listening. You feel the pull, the calling, the chariot waiting somewhere above. But you're not ready. Not yet. Just a little longer. Because the sun will rise tomorrow, and you want to be here when it does. It begins with a whisper, the kind that wraps itself in the corners of rooms and clings to candle smoke. At first, you think it's just wind, a dream fragment. But then the servants start talking, softly, nervously. Something's wrong with the king. You find Admetus in his chamber, half sitting in a chair by the window, one hand pressed to his ribs, brow furrowed, not in pain exactly, but in recognition, like a man who's just remembered something important and terrible. Alcestis stands beside him, pale, composed, holding a damp cloth in shaking fingers. You cross the room slowly. What happened? Admetus looks at you, and for the first time, there's no curiosity, no warmth, just exhaustion. I had a dream, he says, not one of the usual ones. You sit beside him. Tell me. I was standing in the field, he murmurs, but it was empty. No cows, no people, just mist. And then a voice called my name, a voice I knew, but didn't want to remember. Alcestis Neal is beside him, clutching his hand. The fates, he says. I think they've made their decision. Your stomach drops. You know that feeling. You've known it since before you had bones. Mortality always comes with a countdown, and some clocks tick louder than others. You say nothing. Just place a hand on his shoulder. It's warm, but fading. Have you been ill? You ask gently. No. He chuckles softly. That's the thing. I feel fine, but I know, in my blood, like something's closing. You glance at Alcestis. Her lips are pressed into a line, eyes dry but stormy. They said I was cursed, he whispers, long ago, that I offended a minor god, something foolish, stepping on a sacred root, speaking too boldly during an eclipse. I barely remember. You do. You remember the moment, a boy shouting into the wind, daring the heavens to test his bravery. The gods took him up on the offer. I was told, he says, that when my time came, I could escape death if someone took my place. The words hang in the room like dust. You've heard that kind of bargain before, a trick from the old days, rare, dangerous, not just a matter of switching places, more like inviting death to dinner and hoping someone else sits in your chair. Do you believe it? You ask quietly. I didn't, he says, not until this morning. His hand tightens slightly around Alcestis's. I don't want to ask. She doesn't speak, but her silence is already answering. Later in the orchard, you walk alone, pipe in hand, playing nothing. The notes feel stuck, wrong. The air is heavy. You think about the rules, the ones that bind even you. You can't undo a curse placed by another god, especially when you're still serving a punishment of your own. You're not allowed to interfere with the fates. No one is, not even Zeus. But you can witness, and sometimes, bend the threads just a little. You find the river again. You kneel, whisper. I don't want to lose him. The current shifts, the reeds tremble. What you love, you will lose. I know, you whisper. But what you give lives on. You clench your fist. He doesn't deserve this. He's kind, flawed, real, and you brought him hope, music, harmony. You refuse to let that be the prelude to tragedy. So you go back. Admetus is asleep, pale but peaceful. Alcestis sits at his side, humming an old lullaby, one you taught her, though she doesn't know it was once sung in temples lined with gold. You sit across from her, watching her, trying to find the right words. She looks up. You know what I'm going to do. You nod. Yes, I won't let him die. Your throat tightens. It's not fair. Love rarely is. You think of all the ballads written in your name, of heroic deaths, of tragic farewells, of immortals watching mortals break themselves on the wheel of fate. And you wonder, how many of those stories started like this? You stand, walk to the window. I'll do everything I can, you say. Even if you can't stop it? She asks. Especially then. Because some moments are bigger than God's. Some love is louder than fate. And in the quiet that follows, you realize you would give up your chariot 100 times over to keep this one flickering light alive. The palace feels different the next morning. It's too quiet, like the whole place is holding its breath. Servants whisper. Guards stand awkwardly in doorways. Even the cows, gathered near the olive grove, seem subdued. No harmonies, no spontaneous choreography, just slow chewing and the occasional low, mournful bellow. You walk the hallways like a ghost, not unseen, but somehow unheld. Your feet make no sound. Your heart pounds loud enough to hear. Alcestis is gone. Not vanished, just no longer in her chamber. Her favorite scarf is folded neatly on the table. Her sandals are missing. So is the little charm Pheidon made her from bits of copper and laurel. She left before dawn. She didn't say goodbye. You find Admetus in the temple annex, kneeling before the hearth. He looks shattered, not weeping. That would be too merciful. Just frozen, like the loss hasn't fit into his bones yet. She made the offering, he says hoarsely. She gave herself. You sit beside him. Did she tell you? He nods once. Last night, when I was already half asleep, I thought I dreamed it, until I woke up to a cold bed and a sprig of myrtle on the pillow. You don't speak. There's nothing to say. Because this isn't some symbolic gesture. This isn't romantic metaphor. She actually did it. Alcestis went to the underworld, willingly, in Admetus's place. The bargain is real. She offered her life so he could keep his, and now she's gone. For now. You go to the meadow and sit with the cows. The sky is heavy, the clouds sagging low like they can't bear to hover anymore. You play your pipe, not to summon, not to enchant, but to remember. A slow, grieving song, half lullaby, half lament. The cows inch closer, forming a circle around you. Even Stompy is quiet. Then you feel it, cold wind on your face, the kind that blows through you rather than past you. She's crossed. You stand. You don't go to Admetus. You don't gather supplies. You don't speak. You walk. Straight to the edge of the grove, past the oldest trees, into the narrow path where the grass stops growing and the air begins to buzz. There's a door here. You've never seen it, but you know it. A crack between worlds. The underworld is closer than mortals think. You step through, and everything changes. No light, no sound, just gray. You walk through a land of stillness. Trees without leaves, roads without stones. A silence so deep it feels like pressure in your chest. Spirits drift past you, shadows of people long gone. They don't look. They don't notice. But they feel you. You glow here, not because you want to, because you can't help it. And then you hear her, not her voice, her presence. Faint, flickering, like a candle at the bottom of a well. You follow it. Past forgotten gates, past a sleeping ferryman who doesn't even stir, until you find her. Alcestis, kneeling in a pool of lightless water, hands in her lap, eyes closed. She's not suffering, not screaming, just waiting. She knew what she was doing. You kneel beside her. Alcestis. Her eyes open. She doesn't look surprised. You came, she says softly. Of course. You're not allowed. Never stopped me before. She almost smiles. Then a deeper shadow moves, and there it is. Death. Not a creature, not a man, just presence. Cold, heavy, a wall of silence with no face. It notices you. You break the laws, it says. Its voice sounds like the crack of old ice. You stand. I'm asking for her. She gave herself willingly. I know. Then let her stay. You don't flinch. What if I take her place? It pauses. You've already been judged. You nod. Then judge me again. Death leans forward. Its shape shifts, now taller, now smaller, now impossible to measure. You can't stay here. You breathe. Then let us both leave. The silence grows so loud it becomes sound. Then, an answer. If someone takes her hand, she may walk, but only if her soul is called back. You turn to Alcestis and you play. Not with your pipe, with your voice. A song from the first dawn, the one you used to sing when sun first touched the earth. A song that bends time and memory, that makes the dead remember breath and the living forget fear. Alcestis listens, her fingers twitch, and slowly she takes your hand. Light, sound, the world spins, and you are back. On the hillside. Morning. Admetus is there, collapsed in disbelief, sobbing, arms around her. She is alive. She is back. And you are not. Not in the same way. You feel the strain. You feel the cost. But you don't care. Because she's alive. And sometimes, breaking the rules is worth it. You've never been this tired. Not in the mortal sense. Not the pleasant kind of tired you get from a long day in the fields or a night of too much fig wine and music. This is deeper, soul tired. You feel it in your breath, in the corners of your thoughts, like you've stretched too far from who you are and stayed too long in someone else's shape. But you do it again. Alcestis is alive. She moves like a woman freshly made of sunrise, each step tentative and full of wonder, as though the grass is softer than she remembers, and the breeze is singing her name. Admetus hasn't let go of her hand since she returned. The town is overwhelmed. No one knows what happened, only that their queen vanished and came back, pale but glowing, with the look of someone who stared at silence and come back with secrets. You let them believe what they want. Divine blessing, heroic luck, the price of pure love. The truth, your truth, is quieter, less dramatic, and also, somehow, more. You're not a hero in this story. You're the interruption. The out-of-place God who took a year off and accidentally gave two people a second chance. And now? Now the end is curling around the edges of everything. The cows know, they follow you more closely, their movements slower, their songs more subdued. Stompy even headbutts you with what seems like genuine sorrow. Pheidon won't stop asking you questions. Where are you going? Are you taking the cows? Can I have your pipe? You smile tiredly and ruffle his hair. You can try to take the pipe. Even Admetus, who usually lets silence do the talking, begins to look at you with that quiet edge of farewell behind his eyes. You don't need to tell him. He already knows. The day before the end, you stand on the hill above the olive groves, looking down at the palace, the fields, the shining curve of the river. The sun is warm, the breeze is soft, The cows are sleeping, and you're ready. You find Admetus under the poplar where you used to sleep. He looks older but stronger, weathered, like someone who survived more teas. And he expected and somehow grown deeper rather than harder. She's different, he says quietly. Alcestis? She will be. She doesn't talk about it. She shouldn't. He nods. I owe you everything, he says. No, you reply. You owe her. He laughs. You're deflecting. I'm a professional. You both sit in the silence for a while. I'll miss you, he says eventually. I'll miss this. You think he wants to ask what comes next. But instead he says, you know, I think you're the only god I've ever liked. You smirk. That's because I didn't smite you. He chuckles, then grows serious. Will we remember you? Not clearly, you admit, but something will linger. A story, a song, a cow with perfect pitch. He glances at the herd. I'm going to have a hard time explaining them to future generations. Good. Let the myth spread. At twilight, Alcestis finds you near the river. She doesn't say anything at first, just sits beside you, tucking her feet beneath her robe, hands resting in her lap like folded wings. Finally, she says, You pulled me back. You nod. I remember your voice. It wasn't a song. It was light. You smile. Same thing, really. She reaches into her cloak and hands you something small. A charm, woven from olive twigs and gold thread, shaped like the sun. For wherever you go next, she says. You close your hand around it. Thank you. The stars begin to appear, one by one, scattered like seeds across a velvet field. It's almost time. You stand on the hill again that night, the cows gathered in a half circle, Pheidon asleep on your old cloak, a half-eaten plum in his hand. Admetus and Alcestis stand just behind him, hands clasped, watching you. You take your pipe and play one last song. It's not a farewell, it's a gift, a melody of mornings and laughter and muddy sandals, of cows who learn to hum and kings who learn to listen, of wild boars and talking lions and quiet rivers that still remember your name. And then you rise. Not with wings, not in fire, just lifted. Soft light wraps around you, the kind that doesn't burn, only blesses. The herd watches in silence. Admetus nods, tears shining in his eyes. Alcestis presses her hand to her heart. And you go home. But not unchanged. Never unchanged. You're home. And it's unbearable. The marble halls of Olympus shine as always, polished to a divine gleam that reflects your footsteps back at you in perfect, unblinking clarity. The air tastes like nectar and lightning. Harps play from nowhere. The clouds are engineered to fluff at photogenic angles. Everything is beautiful. Everything is hollow. You stand in your old chamber, your scrolls untouched, your golden lyre gleaming on its pedestal, and you feel like a visitor, a tourist in your own life. Your chariot waits in its vault, the solar steeds nicker softly, eager, but you haven't touched the reins. Instead, you wander. You walk the same colonnades where you once held debates with Athena, exchanged barbs with Hermes, brushed past Aphrodite with a smirk and a poem. But now the conversations drift past you like smoke, and the gods greet you with curiosity more than familiarity. You look tired, Artemis says. I am. You're not supposed to be. You nod. Even she doesn't quite know what to make of you. Her twin brother, reborn through cow dung and mortality. In the Hall of Judgment, Zeus sits in his throne of thunder, fingers drumming clouds. You did more than was asked, he says. I always do. You interfered with death. You lift your chin. I redeemed a life. He narrows his eyes. And was that your right? Maybe not, you say, but it was right. Silence. Then a small, rare smile. You're different, he says. I hope so. You were always fire, he adds. Now, you're something slower. Light, you say, not flame. He gestures to your chariot. Take your place, if you're ready. But you're not. Not yet. Because something still lingers. You find a quiet ledge overlooking the mortal world. Below, Thessaly stretches like a painted dream. Olive groves, rivers, a pasture glowing in dawn's light. You swear you can still hear the faintest lowing of a cow from somewhere far, far below. You close your eyes and imagine the herd. Irene with her calm eyes, Stompy with his grumpy grace, Pheidon's laugh echoing off stones, Alcestis and Admetus walking in the fields, hand in hand, alive, still alive. You don't need to visit, you won't. That's not how this works. Mortals must live without their gods watching over their shoulders like overzealous parents. But they will feel you, in a melody that drifts through the olive trees, in the warmth of the sun on the back of their necks as they lead cattle to pasture. In the quiet hum of harmony beneath the clatter of life. They'll remember, not your face, not your name, but something. A shepherd, a song, a golden light that taught them how to listen. And one day, when someone tells the story of the god who became a cowherd and made the cows sing, no one will believe it. They'll laugh and say, that's not how gods work. But maybe, just maybe, they'll hum the tune anyway, and that will be enough. And now, as the final light fades behind the distant hills, you step quietly away from the pastures of memory. The cows settle in for the night, their breathing deep and slow, the earth beneath them warm from the day's sun. You hear one last soft moo drifting upward, a lullaby meant for no one and everyone. Let it drift through you now. Let the tension in your hands go. Let your jaw unclench, your shoulders lower. All the noise of the day begins to recede, like ripples in a pond after the last stone has sunk. There is nothing to chase now, nothing to prove. You followed the path, heard the song, felt the rhythm of something much older than worry. Let your breathing match that rhythm. Inhale, slow and easy. Exhale, even slower. Somewhere in the distance, the gods look down and smile. Not in judgment, not in awe, but in the quiet knowing of a story well told. The past is behind you. The pasture is still. The stars above blink gently, as if they too are nodding off. So now, let your eyes soften. Let your thoughts wander, lazily, like cattle drifting in tall grass. You are safe here. You are warm. You are home.